It's my great pleasure to welcome you to today's next keynote, or should I say keynotes with an S. We're very lucky to have two speakers who are responsible for some of the biggest unscripted shows on international television. I'm speaking of Paul Telegdy, president of the Alternative and Reality Group at NBC Entertainment, and Meredith R., president of Universal Television Alternative Studio. Paul has been an executive at NBC for almost 10 years, and before that, he held senior positions at BBC Worldwide America. Since 2016, Paul's mandate includes oversight of such hit unscripted franchises as The Voice, America's Got Talent, American Ninja Warrior, and Little Big Shots. Meredith has helped build and lead NBC's unscripted business for 13 years. Currently, she runs Universal Television Alternative Studio, the new business unit that supplies unscripted shows to NBC and other networks. Meredith is behind such recent hits as The Wall, Better Late Than Never, and is producing Worlds of Dance featuring Jennifer Lopez for NBC. Paul and Meredith will give us insights into how they develop and produce hit shows in this fast-changing time for free TV. They will then be joined on stage for a Q&A by Stewart, Clarke, editor of TBI magazine. Please join me in welcoming Paul Telegdy and Meredith R.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us, guys. As you may have noticed, wandering up and down the Quasette, a lot of the noise at MIP this year is around drama. And yet, at the same time, what we see with what you guys are doing during this moment, is a good moment for NBC, is that unscripted is very, very much part of the story. Quite simply, what is it you guys are doing that perhaps some of your peers aren't? What's the secret sauce? And please share it.
Uh-oh. Go ahead.
Okay. We love great drama, and I think that we hold ourselves to the standard of the best storytelling. We focus on characters and relationships, and what we have, which we've stumbled upon through starting with America's Got Talent, building upon that with American Ninja Warrior and all the shows that have come after, is that the shows all share the pillars of NBC, which we're also proud to uphold. Which are, they're all fundamentally positive, they're human first, and they all exhibit their own inherent ingenuity. And those three things kind of go across all of the shows, and I think there's a sense of a standard that we've set within our own group and the shows that come after that, that there's a sense of pride of being a part in good company. And so that the producers and the creators that come afterwards understand that they have to meet or exceed that standard.
And Paul, coming to you, we're in the south of France. You've worked in the international business. You understand the international business. I mean, how tuned in are you and the team to what's happening in France? What's coming out of the UK or those other hotspots out of Israel or the Netherlands? Is that something you pay great heed to?
Yes, we do. I mean, some of our historically, and we hope every day that there'll be a format that will come from somewhere. And if you think about big NBC shows, Deal or No Deal, which was very nourishing for a long time, The Voice, which obviously from John de Mol, we were preceded by the Dutch version. We've had to be part of a sort of visible and invisible network of information gathering, looking at ratings, trying to understand the businesses of our kind of brother broadcasters. And through that, we've seen hit surface. So
it's interesting. Some of those shows you mentioned there are doing fantastic numbers for you guys, which must be gratifying. And yet at the same time, I guess they're made by, whether it's a Tauper or a Fremantle in terms of the distribution piece. I wonder, was that part of the thinking when you guys decided to create the studio that Meredith now runs? Was it that ownership to an extent?
Well, so like one of the mantras of our owners, literally Comcast, Brian Roberts and Steve Burke, who's our CEO, they And it was a change when we changed ownership to think as long-term as possible. And they use the expression to, you treat every business, think like owners, not like renters. So think for the long term. And one of the obvious decisions for us was to try and reposition ourselves somewhere in the value chain and apply some of what we'd learned to the process of creating original formats in which we might have a greater stake, financially and creatively.
So Meredith, this is a big job. This runs across all of unscripted. When you came in, what was the immediate challenge? What was the expectation from the alternative studio that you're now running?
Right away, I knew, you don't just plant a flag or a sign outside your door and you're automatically a studio. We needed to set ourselves apart and set a brand for ourselves and make a name for ourselves. So there were 3 key areas that we wanted to focus on. The first was we wanted to establish ourselves as a place where great original content and formats can come from. So we doubled down on development. We knew you're nothing without that IP. Second, we wanted to establish ourselves as a premier partner for production so that we could pull off shows across all genres of programming, whether it's big stage, docu, whatever you want to call it, wherever you're from. And then the third was to really attract and develop top-tier talent, whether it's behind the camera or in front of the camera. So we knew we had to come out of the gate with some product that would basically stake our claim on those 3 areas.
And unscripted is a broad church.
Sure.
Within that, did you go out of the gate thinking this is about shiny floor, or this is about talent shows? Are you going to run the gamut of that kind of unscripted category? What can we expect in terms of what you're developing?
I hope so. Alternative is what they call it in the United States. It's unscripted. It's anything that's not a traditional comedy or drama. So, we sometimes tell people when they come in, especially creators or talent who are new to the world, Seinfeld actually came out of the alternative division. It came out of the specials unit at NBC, and it came through a very untraditional way. It eventually became, obviously, a massive sitcom in our traditional comedy department, but the way it came through was through unconventional means. That's not to say that I want to make sitcoms or do anything of the sort, but I think that for us, one of the first things I wanted to do, I looked at what have been the most successful formats of all time. Which ones have traveled the globe the most, which have made the most money, and inevitably a lot of them were game. And so for us, we were very lucky that we had a property in The Wall that Andrew Glassman came in. The moment that you saw it, you knew that it wasn't just any old game show. It reminded me of the day that Deal or No Deal was pitched at NBC. It felt like an event. We knew we needed to turn it into a sporting event and give it that kind of feel. And it was very unique. And then the second thing that I wanted to do, I knew Paul because he's a dear friend, but also the way he came to America was through Dancing with the Stars and bringing that to America. He's always wanted to crack a dance show. And we've been pitched many over the years. I tried and failed one at one point, and we were working very hard on trying to figure that out, and we developed World of Dance.
Paul, World of Dance. It's interesting, isn't it, with your background, because I guess in some senses in the US you cut your teeth on another big dancing show. Mm-hmm. How has that category, how's that genre evolved, and how does that relate to what we're going to see with World of Dance?
Well, look, first I always want to clarify the role I played in Dancing with the Stars' arrival in the US this was a massive established hit in the UK. Okay. And so I was just the guy who kind of had the in-tray in Los Angeles at the time. And my friends from BBC Entertainment Department whooshed in, and that thing became what it was. And part of it was just this highly easy to understand competitiveness, really, because the dancing on Dancing with the Stars is rarely what I would say is excellent by the standards of 2 professionals dancing together, because obviously it's a pro-am competition. And we really just wanted to display dance as the sport that everyone we'd ever come into contact with in the dance world, whether it was on AGT or from knowing the pros from Dancing with the Stars, because you sort of become friends as you're in business. They were really competitive and really creative, and we felt like there was definitely a show there.
And it's interesting, you talk about dance as a sport. That's how and that cuts across demographics in a way that dance maybe didn't a generation ago.
Well,
even
you
10
know,
years ago.
that's again, we've got kids and lots of the parents that we know were also saying, look, you know, perhaps there's a bit too much emphasis on some traditional sports. And we're actually parents that put our kids into dance at a very young age. No, they're not going to go to the Bolshoi or something, but it's really done very seriously as an after-school activity and as a recreational participant. In Los Angeles, down 5 miles of Ventura Boulevard, there are probably 50 dance studios, and they're busy. And there's a lot of digital content that emanates from it as well.
As in, it can be cut into chunks that serve digital platforms well. So it's good for that piece in terms of marketing, or
it's very good. There are billions of views of dance on YouTube. It is a very robust area digitally, and the show cuts up quite well.
So you have a new show coming from Jennifer Lopez in the dance category. There's some other shows we're going to come on to talk about, but one thing that seems clear, or one link that one could make, is that talent is very central, whether it's at an exec producer level, whether it's on screen. That's something. Are you consciously trying to leverage the relationships you have as a network with some of the stars, and are they coming to you? Has this always been the case and they're finally getting stuff away? I wonder, is that something new?
Well, we want to characterize this process correctly, I think, which is we like having people that are prepared to roll their sleeves up and do the work. And I mean, do you want to speak to this area?
Yeah, I think that there's a little bit of gut when you meet somebody and we are creatively in sync with them. Obviously, a huge star can help market the show and be the face of the show to sort of help launch it. But there are some real distinct qualities of the people that we creatively work with. They're not just sticking their name on the project. They're, like he said, rolling their sleeves up and really creatively getting involved to help us crack these formats. I mean, I'm a reality producer, executive, whatever you want to call it. I'm not a dance expert. I can barely dance. But Jennifer Lopez, I think, you know, anybody that takes this format in their market and makes their localized version, they're going to have the benefit of the fact that she helped us with this scoring system. You know, in order to turn this into a sport, we had to come up, we gave her 10 categories. She said, too many, here are the 5, here's how you're going to divide them. This is what I'm going to be thinking about when I'm judging. Derek Huff is one of our judges as well. He spent many years, his whole life, in dance competitions and has been on Dancing with the Stars. He put his stamp on that too. So I think that, you know, understanding that the talent isn't just sticking their face on a poster, that they're really diving in to make the show better.
What was the process with Amy Poehler? Tell us about what you're doing with her, because I know you've got a show there.
Amy is just one of the most delightful people that I've ever met. She's one of those people that's better in person than what you see on TV, but she's wicked smart, and she's very business-minded. She could have come in when we did this overall deal with her. We're so excited that she put her hand up and said, I want to get into the alternative space. What I love about her and about that first meeting, if we were thinking about what we would do with Amy Poehler, we would have pitched something totally different. Probably the obvious, probably what everyone here would have expected. And she decided that she wanted to pitch her passion project first, and it was the handmade project. And she just loves crafts and artisans and things. Yeah, go ahead.
And for those who don't know,
yes.
just very quick, the show is?
Sure, it's called the Handmade Project, and it's a competition for amateur artisans, people who from all walks of life who make things from scratch with their hands.
And is Amy on screen? Is she executing it?
She's going to co-host. She's an executive producer. And in that same meeting, she said, I really want to co-host it with somebody I have chemistry with and somebody who's my friend. And the perfect person to her was Nick Offerman, who was a co-star on Parks and Recreation. And they're dear friends, but he's also a master woodworker. He has his own shop. He loves to talk about it. So she liked the dynamic of the fact that she was a complete novice, and she'll be seeing things through the eyes of the viewer who can do nothing with their hands, and he'll have that technical eye.
Paul, I might be making a leap here, but it seems there's a show back in the UK that's done quite well called Bake Off. There's something in that show that is about taking some sort of a hobby that is typically done at home. It seems there's something in the DNA of this show as well. Is that fair?
Honestly, well, Meredith expressed it really well, but I sort of see this as a trend in a way, which in a world where there's a lot of mass-produced items, and indeed the quality of those mass-produced items. I'm talking about, I mean, I'm a BlackBerry and a flip phone guy. I'm not, but my kids' iPhones are a thing of beauty to them as well, and they sort of adorn them. But it really stops there, and I noticed they weren't that excited about the next new phone because it doesn't really do that much more. And now they're all into like making stuff and getting back to like baking and but also handicrafts of every kind. And then, you know, we go down one of these weird YouTube rabbit holes where you realize, oh my God, yeah, in a world of mass-produced items, something that's made with love and I think about the items that I've been given in my life that someone else made, and like staring and hiding in plain sight. Yeah, the Bake Off is about cakes. Cakes are always made with love. They're delicious, you know, and Amy's kind of approach to a crafting competition felt like it had that vibe. And I'd loved the Bake Off. I'm a big Mel and Sue fan. I always have been.
And in terms of the available shelf space on NBC, because you've got returning shows and things like The Wall that have launched strongly and then got recommissioned, there's actually not that much room, is there, for new stuff to come through?
Look, broadcast television is, you know, I say this because we're meeting with colleagues here who are in sort of the same business as us to kind of talk about the state of things. And it's in rude health. So we actually have a demand for new shows, and it's only finite because there are so many hours that we program in the way that primetime is structured. And I just think it's inevitable that, very soon, obviously, I mean, it's imminent, Meredith's going to be selling to other networks by virtue of good ideas needing the right homes.
The first few projects are for the network, but are you already at the stage of talking to other broadcasters in the US? Is that just naturally part of the process?
In the US and internationally, quite frankly, because I think that these shows travel, and that if the best first place for a pilot or a series to go might be in another country first, we're all game for anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. Just it's funny. Just even in the first 24 hours of the market, you bump into people that you swap war stories about the pilots you've shot around the world, and friends from Israel, from Sweden, and things. And we've had a go at a lot of things, and
Yeah.
Paul, here's a question: when Meredith and her studio get away an incredibly successful show on Fox, how's that going to go down?
Well, the way it always does, which is, again, our bosses really count one major metric, and everyone, I can see a few colleagues in the audience there, they count money as the performance metric. So businesses that make money are exciting to them. And if Meredith is in the process of building a business that makes an exciting amount of money, they won't mind if it's a hit on another network.
There's another new show we need to talk about, and it's the show you're doing with Chris Hardwick, who, again, is someone you're working with already. There's a relationship there, and I know, Paul, from what you're saying, you rate him extremely highly as a broadcaster.
Yeah.
But if Handmade is almost about something quite traditional and in a cool way, the Awesome show is something different. Tell us what that's going to achieve.
Well, I think that it's always interesting, like what the creative DNA of the show was. And by the way, waiting out the back there, we were watching the Amazon piece with the kind of, I'm confused whether it's Top Gear or Grand Tour footage, kind of, that story. But we wanted to make a show that had what Top Gear very successfully turned a kind of consumer, a clipboard consumer show into a kind of road movie about cars. Like I always remember Andy Willman, who produced Top Gear and Grand Tour, saying it's like Sideways meets Collateral, and we're like, oh, we thought it was about cars. And I got what he meant, but there have been a couple of botched attempts to make of that version of the show. But we saw a place for a kind of Top Gear-like show, by which I only mean an entertainment show with a very specific point of view, driven by a star with a passion. And the Awesome Show is bluntly about the future. We feel that sitting in Southern California, where we run the business, we are party to things that almost feel like science fiction from a technology point of view.
And in terms of the way you describe it, in terms of the tone and where it's going, if there's a show like Black Mirror that's perhaps a very dystopian view of the future, this isn't that.
It's the antithesis of that. I mean, our audience does not want to have nightmares about being chased by driverless cars. I mean, honestly, I am so pathetic. I watch Black Mirror and I get frightened like I used to when I was a 9-year-old watching Doctor Who. The Awesome Show is hopeful, and Chris is an enthusiast, an expert, and someone who actually has dedicated a lot of his bandwidth to making scientists superstars.
And you talk very highly about Chris. He's doing this talk show on AMC.
Yeah,
which is
by the
now,
way, we don't get
round.
a spotter's badge for discovering Chris Hardwick. He was very successful before he came to us.
But in terms of, as a broadcaster, he's clearly someone you rate.
Yeah.
What's next, Meredith? What are you working on at the moment in terms of areas of focus? What's coming through? How big is the development slate? Are you juggling lots of plates there, or is it something that ramps up over time?
Definitely takes time. I have a poster in my office that producers always appreciate when they come in. It says, "Nothing great is created suddenly." It takes 18 months to 2 years to get it right. World of Dance is an anomaly because it was really a pretty simple bracketed competition. But especially when you're trying to create things that sort of are familiar yet delight you in a different way, there are a lot of nuances and very, a lot of tender loving care needs to be applied to all of these shows. But I love any type of talent, any type of performance, but I also really want to be hearing from people who haven't been in our space, like Amy. Sean Hayes is somebody that we've worked with. He brought Hollywood Game Night to us. You know, somebody who had never been in the genre, just to figure out how do we innovate so that it doesn't feel like more of the same. You know, we really want our viewers to be surprised and delighted.
And I think it's important to, you know, the talent-based and relationships are there, but we're not developing so specifically with them that others can't be in the shows. Like, the talent understands we've got to make a bulletproof format that you can bluntly drop the French or the German version of them into it. We're not interested in making like just unique vehicles. So even the Chris Hardwick show has within it formatable and replicable elements.
Yeah, we've been working on that all year and we finally cracked it. I think that one other point that I just wanted to make in terms of the development slate, what I'm so proud of and what's been so thrilling over the last 11 months since we stuck our sign on the wall is we're co-developing with the top tier talents from around the world. You know, we're co-developing with Arthur Smith, Stephen Lambert, Mark Burnett, the list goes on, but then also we're giving shots to people who have never developed for a network before and sometimes show running for network for the first time. And that process has been equally thrilling, I think. And I think that hopefully we'll get some really original ideas out of that.
Let me ask you about a show that has been on air for a few years now. And I think I think the 12th is on, or the 13th has been recommissioned, I think, which is The Voice. Now there's some other big music competition shows that are perhaps coming to the end of their cycle, whereas The Voice seems to keep building. Is that something that is going to be around for years and years to come? How do you keep the momentum? How do you keep it fresh?
Well, I think the network, what we can be is just like the biggest champions of the show and grab investment for marketing and things like that. But it's funny, the big shows and a lot of people that, let's say, you know, The Voice, but also a show like America's Got Talent, there's a show family that is highly incentivized to kind of keep it all going. Because there's a lot of well-paid jobs and good employment from one of these things. It's very nourishing. And that goes for the talent as well. So the let's keep doing this better every year enters into it. Everyone's in it together.
Paul, is that a show you can see being on air for years to come? Is that an evergreen in the making?
Yeah, absolutely, because we keep investing and new talent wants to be involved.
Here's a question for you, Paul. It's undeniable that there's more competition. You're a broadcaster and you must read the stories in the trades and elsewhere. Sometimes people are pretty downbeat about broadcast, and people can be kind of gloomy. Yeah. And at the same time, what you see are the digital players, those SVOD players coming in and now making big moves in terms of that unscripted piece as well. You've got some big new competitors to take on. I mean, how do you adapt to that new world?
Well, I mean, I think that we're sort of successfully partnering with the new digital age. That's to say, I think that Netflix and Amazon and all of those big new entrants into the scripted market, of course, are going to start factual programming, documentaries, and Grand Tour, and all of these examples. And then there's also this sort of uniquely, we hear that TF1's in rude health. We hear that, audiences for some of the big commercial channels around the world are still healthy. And yes, we're all fighting the same battle. But as far as we're concerned, what we're hearing from the advertisers, and it's apropos of this time of year for me, because we're just going to market, is no one's watching commercials anywhere except for on broadcast television. So however we create sticky environments where, and yes, that's frequently a partnership with, Facebook video has been huge for our shows, the amount of clips that move out, YouTube. There are friends in terms of the promotion and creating a return path to the shows and remaining relevant with young audiences. As far as anyone that wants to program and tell stories, it's competitive whatever you're doing, whether you're doing it in broadcast or whether you're doing it for Netflix, who do a great job, or for Amazon, who do a great job, or for NBC. We're really happy about this marriage of the 30-second commercial, what's left of people watching broadcast television in huge numbers on a night-by-night basis. And they seem to love the stuff that we're doing. Good
stuff. The big red zero sign tells me that we've run out of time. Please join me in saying a big thank you to Paul and Meredith. Thank you.
Thanks, Stewart.
Thank you. That's fun.